and they are made up of bipartisan persons who serve without compensation to advise the Commission on relevant information concerning their respective states. At today's community forum, it is our purpose to hear from the community about their perspectives, opinions, and stories about federal immigration enforcement and how it has impacted and/or may impact California children. This inquiry is in response to alleged accounts of elevated ICE presence at safe zones, such as schools and courthouses, and in response to the administration's immigration enforcement efforts. Among related concerns, the committee is also examining the impact of ICE enforcement practices on access to public education for California's K-12 students, access to equal protection under the law for individuals based on their perceived national origin, and the extent to which due process is denied or afforded to students and their families. Based on this information, the committee will draft a report that will be shared with the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights and will determine appropriate advice and recommendations. I should also note that this is the second information gathering event hosted by the California Advisory Committee on this topic. Our first event took place on October 16th in Los Angeles, where we heard from a range of speakers who offered testimony. I'd like to share that at the outset, this meeting is being recorded for the public record, and so I ask that you please state your name when speaking. I would like to present the ground rules for today's meeting. This is a public meeting, open to the media and the general public. This is a safe space, and we welcome you all. If you would like to speak during today's community forum, please sign up at registration by filling out a short form. Each speaker will be given 5 to 10 minutes to speak, unless specifically requested to speak longer. Committee members may ask questions of speakers, however, the main purpose is to ensure your stories, opinions, and perspectives are told. Though some of the statements made today may be controversial, we want to ensure that all attendees do not defame or degrade any person or organization. As the Vice Chair, I reserve the privilege to cut any statements short that defame, degrade, or do not pertain to the issue at hand. I urge all persons making presentations to be judicious in their statements. The California Advisory Committee appreciates the willingness of all participants to share their views and experiences with this committee. For those of you who use social media, we have 2 hashtags for today's event, and they are hashtag USCCR State Committees and hashtag USCCR Briefings. And the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights Twitter handle is at USCCRGov. Thank you all. We'll now begin by inviting the first speaker. We do have Maimon Schwarzschild is also joining us. He's a member of the committee. He is on my far right. So the first speaker I'd like to invite up is Raul Rodriguez. And when you come up and speak, if you can speak right into this mic, because it's a little temperamental, so please speak right into that small mic. Also, as you speak, Maria will hold up a sign when you have 2 minutes left, so you'll know about how much time you have remaining. Good, Raul.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to spend some time to share a very sad story about an individual who I know personally, and I found out about his daughter being, just want to make a statement, be sure to say that she was killed by an illegal alien. Cristina Sue Pena, age 13 or 14. The shirt I am wearing honors Cristina Sue Pena, age 13. She was abducted, raped, and stabbed to death by an illegal alien who had committed other abductions of girls in Central California. If ICE had been allowed to do their job, Cristina would not have been savagely murdered. Her father and entire family are heartbroken at the loss of Cristina. Keep our children safe and let ICE do their job. It's very sad. I met Mr. Pena at a conference with the Remembrance Project. And by the way, I am the California Coordinator Coordinator for America First Latinos.
If I can just interrupt you, sorry, sir, I want to use this mic instead.
Is that better?
Yes.
Anyway, like I said, I am the California Coordinator for America First Latinos, and we educate and inform the Latino and Hispanic community regarding our laws and the rights that we have in our country. And we do have a problem with the fact that we have so many in our country that are illegally in our country that ICE cannot do their job because elected officials are trying to prevent them from doing their job by passing laws, making California a sanctuary state, by allowing other laws to implement and allow these individuals to go scot-free when they commit a crime. I am law-abiding. My parents taught me to obey the law. They also taught me that if I could do something wrong, I will have to suffer the consequences. Whatever it is that I've done, or anybody else for that matter, has to suffer the consequences. And that's what needs to happen to people who are not doing the right thing in this country, coming across illegally, murdering people, children, men, women. It's just unbelievable that they are doing this and nothing is being done to them. Rather than deporting them or placing them behind bars for their crimes, they are allowed to go free in the streets and nothing is being done. So this is why I'm here testifying that we need to have a change in our country to allow our laws to be administered to those people that are breaking the laws. Regardless whether it's a state, federal law, they still need to be punished for what they're doing. So therefore, I do have a lot of respect for law enforcement. Whether it's the CHP, Los Angeles Police, ICE, Border Patrol, I have respect for these individuals because they are protecting each and every one of us day and night, keeping us safe and keeping us from any harm and danger. And that's what they do. They do that every day when they're on the job and even off the job. So it's important that we respect and we thank them for their service because they have a very difficult job. And that job is to keep Americans safe. At the same time, we need to keep our families, our children, and our loved ones safe from any danger that's out there in the streets. And law enforcement is doing that for us. So, as an American citizen, I love this country, and I will continue supporting those that love this country, those that come to this country for the right reason, to benefit by this wonderful country, the rights that we have as American citizens. No other country in this world has the same rights that we have as American citizens. And we need to remind people that our forefathers are the ones responsible for the rights that we have. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights. We have so many important documents that they created for us to uphold, just like our laws. So it's important that we as American citizens honor our forefathers and continue serving this country in the right way. Like I said before, Miss Cristina Sue Pena was raped by an individual who was in our country illegally. And he should have been punished for what he did. And this should not be happening in our country. So therefore, I want to thank you for allowing me to share with you and share the story of the Remembrance Project. There are so many, there are thousands of American citizens being murdered. I can share another one. Joe Story is another individual that was driving home with his wife and his sister after fishing. And he was driving home and an illegal ran the red light, rammed their truck, and ended up killing Joe Story. He died in that vehicle. His wife had serious injuries, and his sister, Chris,
she also had very serious injuries. And that person is still scot-free. He was supposed to go to court, and he never showed up for court. He is somewhere in this country and that wasn't punished for his crimes. And that's another sad story that should never happen in this country. And it is up to us to enforce and make sure that our laws are adhered to by law enforcement, especially our elected officials, because they are the ones at fault for not allowing our laws to be adhered to. So once again, thank you very much. And I do appreciate this time to be able to share with you. And I think that something needs to be done by elected officials and those in the power who are enforcing the law. Thank you very much. And God bless America, and God bless Donald Trump. Thank you.
Can I speak without it?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Our next speaker, Thomas Hobson.
Hello there. This is really interesting. I found out about this meeting because I joined a group online and didn't really know what I was getting into, so I apologize for being unprepared. My name is Thomas J. Hobson. I go by my middle name, Jay. I came here today as my first meeting of this sort. And I have to admit that I've been rather lax in standing up and speaking what I believe needs to be spoken in this nation at this time. I believe that there is a silent majority in this nation that are tired of having their civil rights, American civil rights, trampled all over in the name of compassion and mercy for the illegal aliens. I know that we need to love everyone. We need to be welcome with open arms those who would like to be a part of this country. However, if we allow every person that crosses into the country illegally to just bestow upon them the same civil rights that we as Americans have worked for and earned, and legal immigrants have worked for and earned, then we are not blessing them with civil rights. We are blessing this country or cursing this country with civil chaos. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're beginning to see. It just here and there, the gentleman just now had several episodes of rape and murder, and I had one I was going to read here, but I don't think I need to. They're just all over the nation. In New York City, there was the one I was going to read was about a person that, a 20-year-old that raped and murdered a young girl. He was released because of sanctuary policies in New York City and did the same thing again. And talk about chaos. That's all. It just seems to me it's complete insanity to allow, simply because they're illegal aliens, they have the right to rape and pillage, to come in and rape and pillage American citizens. Makes no sense to me at all. And I think Americans are waking up to it. I really believe that we need to have compassion. We need to allow those who did come here illegally to have some sane way for us to reach out to them and maybe help them when and where we can. However, we are not, it is not a rule, I don't believe it is a rule that makes any sense to grant them the ability to commit murder and chaos and bring chaos to the streets of the United States of America. And I hope that we will see those, like the gentleman just said, that will stand up, especially in the California government, and start saying no to sanctuary laws and sanctuary cities, which I believe are simply illegal themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hobson. Our next speaker, and by the way, any of the panel, if you have a question, just holler. Our next speaker, Peter Nunez.
Thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to talk to your group today. I'll start by a brief description of my background. I was a federal prosecutor here in San Diego for 16 years, beginning in 1972 and ending in 1988. As you can imagine, much of the work of the U.S. Attorney's Office here involved border crimes of every variety, including immigration violations. So I guess I learned how to try cases and how to be a prosecutor by dealing with immigration issues from 1972 on. In 1982, I became the United States Attorney here during the Reagan administration. And after that, I went back to Washington for 3 years and served in federal law enforcement in Washington at a policy level, I suppose you would say. I guess I'd like to address your concerns by talking a little bit about the rule of law, about the collateral consequences of enforcing the law, and I suppose finally, hopefully, a way forward. Obviously, Congress has passed a set of immigration laws to determine who and how many people are allowed to immigrate to the United States. These immigration laws contain penalties, both civil, criminal, and administrative, for those who violate the law. Congress has created federal agencies to implement and enforce those laws, mostly within the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice. ICE, part of DHS, is charged with the enforcement of our immigration laws primarily away from the border. This includes the statutory requirement to locate, arrest, and deport those who have violated our immigration laws. Any country that passes laws and then refuses to enforce those or implement those laws is violating the most basic concepts of democracy and the concept of the rule of law, which we try to convey around the world. We hold ourselves out as champions of the rule of law, but in many cases we fail our own test in terms of that concept. Most importantly, failure to enforce the law encourages additional violations of that law, whatever law you're talking about, immigration, drugs, robbery, whatever. If you don't enforce the law, more people will commit those crimes. Arguably, interior enforcement is equally important in the immigration context to border enforcement, because however many miles of fence we build, we will never be able to stop every person who wants to come here illegally from coming. And so there has to be interior enforcement, and that is mandated by Congress in the law. Efforts by some jurisdictions, California being most notable, to interfere with or prevent the enforcement of the federal law only encourages more lawbreaking in the future. The refusal by state and local law enforcement agencies to cooperate with the enforcement of federal law encourages future immigration violations by making the job of the federal agencies more difficult and more dangerous. It is important to note that in every other area of law enforcement, federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies have forged deep and significant cooperative relationships. From drug enforcement to counterterrorism, from gun violations to gang crimes to cybercrime, from fugitive task forces to regional intelligence analysis, even in the area of human trafficking, federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies have demonstrated the effectiveness and necessity of working together. Only in the area of immigration enforcement has political correctness disrupted what for decades had been similar interagency cooperation and assistance. There was a time, not too long ago, when state and local law enforcement welcomed, even encouraged the cooperation and assistance of federal immigration enforcement to help rid their cities, towns, and neighborhoods of those legal and illegal immigrants who participated in criminal activities. Through the 16 years that I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office here, it was common for the San Diego Police Department, the San Diego Sheriff's Office, the other local police agencies to routinely assist the Border Patrol and INS back in the days before DHS. Certainly those federal agencies charged with enforcing law must do so within established norms of policy and procedure and satisfy whatever due process standards have been mandated by Congress and the courts. And if they fail to do that, they should be held accountable. Collateral consequences. Whenever any person breaks the law, the violator is not the only person to suffer the consequences. Innocent family members, relatives, friends, neighbors, co-workers, all may suffer collateral consequences as a result of the arrest and punishment of the violator. Every person charged with a robbery, assault, burglary, car theft, drug dealing, you name it, suffers the sanctions imposed by the criminal justice system, but the adverse consequences extend to his or her family and anyone connected to that violator. This is equally true for those who violate the immigration laws of the United States. The violator may face criminal sanctions and/or administrative sanctions such as deportation or removal, and the collateral consequences then invariably will have a terrible effect on family, friends, and associates. But the blame for these collateral consequences should fall on the immigration violator, not the government agency charged by Congress with enforcing our immigration laws. When an adult makes a decision to enter this country illegally or overstay his or her visa, temporary visa, they have set in motion a series of events that may have dire consequences on their families, relatives, friends, and associates in the future. To suggest that ICE is the cause of these collateral consequences is both dishonest and irresponsible. Our efforts should be to discourage these lawbreakers from initiating this chain of events that can only end in creating serious problems for their families. The way forward. The best way to make our minority communities safer, more secure, more economically viable, and to protect them from lawlessness is to stop illegal immigration. This is doable, but only if Congress and the President